everyone. I have a wonderful guest here today as an interview partner. And as you know, I do a series with people all around the world about freedom and especially emotional freedom, about liberating yourself. This is a very important topic for me. And I do have interviews with people from all kind of different professions in this area. And today I have a very special guest, Alex Blake from Australia. I've met her 2 years ago at Mind Valley. It was a beautiful it was a beautiful time we spent there, and we got to know each other. And Alex, to me, is a wonderful woman. She was a former engineer and really succeeded in her career. She has 2 children, a wonderful husband, a beautiful house in Australia. And she went through a whole shift. Today, she is a book coach and author. She has an editing business, and she helps people to publish their books. And it is a whole journey. It's a whole journey of personal development that stands behind publishing your own book. And she's helping people through this transformation. I'm very excited to speak with her about it today, and also about the book that she's just about to publish. Welcome here, Alex. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's brilliant to be here with you.
Thank you. Alex, maybe it would be great if you could introduce yourself as well to us, so that we know a little bit more about you and also about your story. How did it come that you shifted from engineering to being a book coach and following your heart and living your calling? I'm very excited to hear that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sylvia. Well, it started in Sydney, Australia. I grew up in the suburbs of Sydney, and I knew that by the time I'd finished all of my schooling, that I wanted to travel outside of Australia. I'd never been overseas before. So I did. I finished a degree in Sydney in engineering, and I wanted that degree to take me around the world. And it did. So I spent many, many years traveling and living in different countries. I met my husband, who's also Australian, who also happens to be an engineer. And together we decided to travel as much as we could, see some very far-flung places of the world. And one of them was the Arctic in northern Canada. And it was in northern Canada where I discovered I was still doing mining, but I discovered a love of mining diamonds. And through all these different travels and working in remote mine sites around the world, I met lots and lots of people who were also working at these remote places and had come from very different backgrounds to me. Some of the stories that we shared at night across the dinner table were really inspiring, humbling, people whose background I'd never actually knew some of those, circumstances could exist. And it was just really fascinating to me. So hearing those stories was fascinating. And I chose to, after we left that last site in northern Canada, we moved back to Australia, and I found that I couldn't let it go. I wanted to keep hearing these stories of people around the world, people who'd grown up very differently to me and who were doing really beautiful things in the world. And that's when I started listening to people's stories, but then taking them a step further and writing them down. And people found that they could share their story with me and then have me write it down in the way that they actually wanted it to be read by others. And so I decided to embark on a career in editing, and then that turned into coaching people all the way through their book writing process.
Wow. Wow, that sounds very fascinating that you traveled the world and listened to all these stories. And as I'm so fascinated about personal development, I know this whole process and progress of step by step showing up more, becoming more visible. And I can also see that in many cases, the personal story is what is keeping people in a way back from getting out there. So what does it take actually to liberate yourself from your story and give it to the world rather than keeping it all to yourself? Like, what did you discover so far when you're working with people?
I think the first thing is to feel safe that you can talk to someone. A lot of people have their message and they have a story inside, but they're not quite sure whether or not someone wants to hear it, or whether or not it's worthy of being shared, or whether or not they can help others by sharing their story. And the first step is to know that when you're working with a book coach, or when I work with people, you're in a safe space. You're going to be heard, you're going to be seen, your story has value, and we just need to get it into the right words that will be really readable, really engaging on the page. So the first step is having a safe space and having someone to talk to who you feel there's a lot of trust there, and the author feels as though something's going to be done with their story. You know, it's no longer just for them, it's for others to hear and to learn and to share.
Wow, yes, that's powerful. I know that your claim on your business card is telling untold stories. And yeah, do you also reveal a lot of secrets? Is it that people, yeah, how is it for people when they're working with you? What does a typical process looks like, and what are the surprises that you've been encountered so far?
Great question. Sometimes there are secrets revealed, but only when the author wants to. Mm-hmm. And there's sometimes in the process while authors are sharing their story with me, there are things that the author will say, I'm not ready to share that yet. And my response is, that's completely okay. The only thing that will go on the page is what you're ready to share. Mm-hmm. So sometimes a few weeks later, the author has sort of sat with having revealed that to me. And now that it's kind of come out and it's not sort of stuck and locked away inside of them, they actually do feel more comfortable now to let others know that piece about them, or that experience where they were really vulnerable, or they, you know, shared something that they had held on to for several years. And they actually feel, to go back to what you were talking about right at the beginning, Sylvia, they actually feel more free, because they have been able to let that out. It's that beautiful saying of, you know, the truth will set you free. So sometimes secrets are revealed, but on the page, if something gets published, it's only if the author is ready for that to be shared to a bigger audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I've been also thinking about is it's actually a really amazing thing to have somebody writing it for you. So if you don't feel like maybe I'm not a great author, maybe I don't find the right words, or I don't know how to start, right? I catch myself, like I actually think of myself that I'm a good writer. And still, if I write something for myself, I kind of get stuck, or I'm like, oh, I don't know how to start. And to really have somebody supporting you in this process and putting words to what is maybe hard to find words for yourself, I think it's just beautiful. And I haven't heard about it before. It's only since recent that I started hearing more about book coaches, and also ghostwriting, and people who help you publishing what you want to bring into the world. And I think it's such a big, it can be such a big accelerator of your growth, right? Also for many people, to tell a whole story, not only like a piece, a post on Facebook here and there, but to really share it all in a way, and reach more people. I think it's a beautiful tool to really write a book. How is that for you, with your clients? This finding the right words for their stories, is that a process, or is it usually right by the beginning to find the right tonality?
It is a process. Some authors come to me because they really only want to speak their story and not go through the motions of writing it. And so they ask me to write it for them. But others really want to do the writing themselves. They love the writing process, and they just need someone to encourage them and to engage with them and to prompt them. So I do both. I work with authors who want to choose either of those methods. The first thing that we work on is why they want to write, why they want to share their story. And we go pretty deep into the purpose of their sharing. And I have a couple of different processes that I take the authors through to really dig into those realizations, I guess. And sometimes the author unlocks something that they didn't know that they were they didn't know that was a reason they needed to write or that they wanted to write. And so we get to the bottom of that, and that really sets the tone of the book. So there are passages in the book that might be that after I read through them, I'll go back to the author with, let's talk further about why this passage is important or why it's not important. Is it distracting the reader, or is it revealing something that's important for the reader to keep engaging with you on this tangent, because it's going to unfold in another way, towards the end of the book. So sometimes there are passages that an author has written which just don't fit. It's a red herring. It's something that's not appropriate for the book. It's kind of a distraction, and so we'll take those pieces out. So we do both. Sometimes I do the writing, and sometimes the author actually does as much writing as they can, and then they come to me, and when they either get stuck or they want someone else to have a look at it, someone who doesn't actually know their personal story and doesn't have all the filters and the beliefs that they have when they embark on that writing process.
Wow. Yeah, I can also imagine that just having somebody who supports you through the process can be very much speeding up the whole process, because I guess if you're only writing for yourself, there will be times where you're stuck, of course, or where the motivation is going down, and maybe you put the whole book aside for a year before you start again. And I guess you can really also bring in more commitment by doing this with a coach.
Yes, there are a lot of opportunities for authors to really go deeper into their writing when they start to work with someone else. Because one of the things that I think as writers we hold back on are the things that are uncomfortable to reveal. And so, but often those things that are uncomfortable to reveal, it's because either we haven't shared them before and this is our first time, or and therefore we've never processed them before, kind of mentally or emotionally. We haven't gone through any processing. But in addition to that, if you are writing, if you are writing something and you get stuck in a place where you're not quite sure where else to go or how deep to go, a book coach can really, gently tease all that information out of you in a really loving, supportive way, where you don't feel that you are being forced in any way. It's really just a gentle encouragement, and I think that's why, you know, authors really love the process, because they're able to, you know, reveal those things with love and support, and it's an important part of their book.
That's something I hear very much, or get very much from you, speaking with you. This feeling of you don't have to do it alone, right? It's interesting because in a way the book is the process of sharing it with the world, but why having to do this also on your own, right? And you said that you can only write about something if you have processed it, and if you are able to let it go. And I think it's a very interesting part. I also see that with my in my business, in my coaching business, that I can only go as far as I have processed some things. And you say, like, you are your business in a way, we say that. So it mirrors yourself, right? And you can only take it to that step where you've gone through it. And I can imagine with the book, how is the process with people? I can imagine that there are all kind of weird things popping up, why they're not going further with their book. And rather than stopping every time in the process, I can imagine that with a book coach, you take the leap. And maybe there's only small things that really help you to get the message finally out, and to have this relief, and also the acknowledgement and the reward of the story that wants to be shared. No?
Yes, the authors are so excited at the end of the process, because they've gone to a place they didn't think they could go. And I'm not in any way a counselor or a therapist. I don't have any training in that. But I try to be a good listener, and I try to be someone who, when you hear certain things from an author, there are ways to keep talking about it. There are signs for me. I've worked with many authors now, and there are specific signs that that become really clear to me while we're working together, that tell me, okay, that's the avenue we have to go down. It's not actually this over here, it's that one over there. And so that's how we gently make our way forward.
Beautiful. And what does it mean for you to publish a book? What do you think it means?
Gosh, it's really it's a few things. It's a stamp on your, it's like a completion stamp. For me, it's a yes, wow, I did that. And helping authors get to that point where they now are discoverable. Their story is discoverable. It's in print. It can be sent anywhere. It can be shared anywhere. It's just a really exciting time for them. I work with a lot of authors who don't actually want to be published. They want their story to be a legacy for their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. And so we work on those things as well. We work on their memories, writing their memories, and writing beautiful short stories of things that they, share, things that they experienced in their life. And it's not a book that they ever want published. And so I work with those authors as well.
Wow. Yeah, if we think about it, when we go, we cannot take any possessions with us. We come naked and we go naked when we die. But in a way, what can remain is our story, right? And what we brought to the world, and capturing it in a book is such a beautiful way.
It
Yeah,
is.
and you've been also writing for the publisher Ignite in a beautiful book, Ignite Your Adventurous Spirit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and why this is important to you as well?
Yes. Well, I started out working as an editor with Ignite Publishing. And during that process, while I was helping other authors, my stories kept bubbling up and bubbling up, and I was invited to write my story and put it into one of the books as well. So I did. I grabbed that opportunity and shared my story as well. So that was really special, and it wasn't necessarily something that I planned on, but yeah, when the opportunity knocked, I had to grab it. So yeah, it was really exciting, and meeting some really beautiful people in the process, other authors who shared in that book as well.
Yeah, I hear more and more that this story and this writing is taking the author to a deep place. No, it's actually a beautiful process, also with everyone who's involved, the people, and also for yourself digging deeper into the meaning of your own story and what you want to share. Beautiful. Yeah, you're just about to publish your own book, a child book. Do you want to share a little bit about the story of the book? We've been speaking about it already the other day, and I think it's an amazing story.
So my children's book is another one of those stories that's been bubbling away in me for a few years, and I knew I had to get it out, even if nothing happened after I got it out. But it turns out that it has gathered some momentum. So the story is called Pillow Mountain. It's a very personal story because it is. I wrote about a mum and a little boy. The little boy has big feelings and wants to express those feelings, and because he's only young, he's only 4 or 5, it's really hard for him to express those feelings, especially frustration. So the mum in Pillow Mountain, she helps him navigate those big feelings by turning the situation into a playful situation, and she builds a mountain on the sofa with all the different cushions and pillows available in the house, and she helps the boy, her son, dive into the mountain, and they get out all of that frustration. He moves his body, he throws his arms out, and he throws his legs out, and he yells, and he releases all that frustration, and then after he's released it all, thankfully that's when the tears come, the tears being nature's way of releasing frustration. And she really holds him. She holds that space for him, and it's a real it's a playful story, but it's also, I think, well, I hope it holds some or gives parents and carers another tool, so that when the child in their care is feeling really frustrated, the parent can say, well, how can I turn this into something playful to help these feelings come out, because they can't stay in, they've got to come out, and they don't always come out at the most convenient times. So the more we can, as parents and carers, the more we can help our kids release frustration in an unconditionally loving way, I think that can only support the kids. I think it helps them in many ways, but yeah, certainly to not feel any shame around big feelings. I really love the idea of parents and carers helping to normalize big feelings.
And why did you care so much about children and about them expressing emotions?
I have 2 boys, and I found early on, when I was the first-time parent, that my son had really big emotions, and I didn't realize. I just didn't have the I guess the experience as a parent. It was my first time. I didn't really know what to do with that. I thought, you know, and often these big emotions would come out at the most inconvenient, sort of socially unacceptable times, and I really knew that, okay, I have to do something here. I can't, you know, I wasn't a believer in sending my child into some timeout corner or that type of environment. That just didn't resonate with me. So when I came across these other methods which helped me understand what was going on as my child developed, from a developmental science perspective, I started to learn and train in what was going on in my child's brain as he was growing, and that really, you know, uncovered for me a whole new world of, wow, I can actually do these types of things as a parent. Now that I know what's happening in my child at age 2, 3, 4, and 5, these are the ways that I can support him to normalize his feelings, you know, to help him know that he's loved unconditionally, no matter what's coming out of his, you know, limbs and body. So for me, it was a pretty big, it was a pretty big surprise. I just didn't really know what. I had never known anybody. I didn't have nieces and nephews who had such big expressions when they felt a certain way. And so it caught me by surprise, and I knew that I had to find a new way, that from everything that I guess society had told me. I knew that that wasn't the way for me to parent. So I tried to find another way, and I did. Yeah.
Wow. And it sort of almost sounds that like your child was helping also you to get into the acceptance of big emotions, right? I guess it's like children are always challenging us, and I think it's such a beautiful story because we're still kind of living in a society where there is a lot of shame around especially negative, so-called negative emotions and expressions, and where it seems like it's better to be perfect, or in order to be successful, we have to be rational and very directed, and allowing this creative side, allowing the expression, allowing the emotions. I think it's something that where we are at a turning point in society as well right now, where people see that emotions are what's driving the world, right? And I think it's so beautiful in your story to see how expressing your emotions is kind of key. I mean, also to what you're doing right now, right? You're helping people to express their stories. Maybe they've gone through suffering, maybe they've gone through challenges, and maybe that's why their story matters and is exciting, because it's only about everything turned out well from page 1. Who would read that story? So how important would you say is it to reveal and understand your own suffering in order to also write a great story or to share it?
Well, I think as humans, we're really attracted to seeing and hearing and reading about other people's hero's journey. And many of us write about our own hero's journey, but it's equally interesting seeing how others have traversed their journey, you know, what dragons they've faced. How did they pacify the dragon or overcome the dragon? You know, what are their beliefs? What are their fears? What are their doubts? And certainly working with authors, I find that often, you know, they've gone through some pretty amazing challenges, not just emotional challenges, but often physical challenges, where they've faced the challenge and they really had two choices. They could either just give up and live out a very sort of predefined life, or they could make something of what had happened to them. So it's really, in my opinion, it's just really, really inspiring to read stories that people have shared around the choices that they made. What choice did they make when they were faced with that challenge? What was going through their mind? How did they make that choice? And often you'll find that people don't really have an outcome in their mind when they make that choice. They just know they have to take a baby step. So they just pull themselves out of the hole, if it is, to use that analogy. They just take a small step, and then that leads to something else, and that leads to something else. And then, a couple of years later, they look back and are amazed at, and say to themselves, how did I achieve that? So I think as humans, we're really intrigued about other people's inspiring. They're really inspiring, and they're humbling, and it's really fascinating to know how strong people are.
Wow.
The inner strength is amazing there, and the hope that they live with, and that never give up attitude, or that, that vision that they have in their mind about, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get there, but that's my vision. Just really inspiring, mentally and emotionally strong people, but also always willing to be vulnerable and to reach out for help when they need it, and receive help when they need it. So that's the journey. It's the strength, and it's the vulnerability, and it's the endurance of holding on to that vision. It's all of those things combined, which I think make amazing stories. And often authors don't realize that they have all that in them until you start, unlocking it all for them.
Wow. And because then the authors, if you see the book and the author, what does it give a whole other picture when you know the person in depth?
It does. And the book it's often a mirror, but just shows a greater depth of what the author, may have been able to speak about prior to writing the book. So the author might be able to speak about that story, but until they dig really deep into some things, there's so much more revealed in a book than in a 20-minute speech. I mean, both of them are equally amazing, but the fact that you can carry someone as an author, you can take someone on, to a different, to a whole different sort of world, really, just in the way that you write your story. You can take someone to not a different planet, but a different space, sort of emotionally and mentally.
Wow. So a book is really about going into depth. What would you say, Alex, for those people who may be listening to this also and want to write their book and maybe are still a little hesitant or need this this next step to kind of finally start and get it out? Like, is there something that you want to share with them right now?
I would say you may not know the person yet, but someone needs to hear your story. Yeah. Even though you may not think it's magical or groundbreaking, most often the thing that you find is very normal or maybe not worth talking about is actually quite inspiring to others. You just haven't met them yet. So start writing, developing the muscle. I think writing is just a muscle. So write. And don't edit yourself. Just start a practice of writing. And then once you feel like you've got enough and you've got some framework around it, or reach out to an editor, have them take a look at it and give you some feedback.
Why did you say not edited by yourself? Why is that important?
When we edit our own work before we've written a lot, we put barriers up for ourselves, and we find ourselves writing with our own filters and our own beliefs around self-doubt, or undeserving, not worthy, not capable, I'm not a good writer. And we put all those filters between us and the page. So it's hard to turn those filters off, but if you can get into a practice where you're writing without filters, without editing yourself, even if it's just 10 minutes a day or 2 hours every weekend, or join a writers group where you can have, some accountability if that's what you need, and just get started that way. And only when you've written lots and lots do you then show it to someone. Use word of mouth to talk to an editor. Like use, ask your other friends who've already written books or have been in writing groups and ask them, do you know any editors I can run this past? Or share it in a lot of writing groups swap their writing and give each other feedback in a safe space.
What you said about the filters, I like that very much, and I can see how also for myself, like when I'm writing and I'm looking back at it and I'm editing it, it's almost like ruining your own magic, right? What does it take to get to this authenticity?
I think you have to be really clear on why you want to write. Why now? Why are you the person, in fact, the only person to tell this story? And if you're writing a self-help book, why are you the person, and why is your content the key pieces of information that others need to find? And that will give you your why. When you answer those types of questions, that will give you your why. This is why I need to write this book. It's been in me for a long time now. And when I answer these questions, this is why I need to write it. And let that be your fuel for continuing to write.
Beautiful. Yes, thank you so much, Alex. I also got myself a lot of motivation out of it to start writing. Okay, as I'm hearing it, I'll just ask myself, would I be ready to write now? And then the answer is, no, I still have to wait a little bit until it evolves a little bit more. But maybe I'm not the only one with this feeling. Like, what would you say is the right timing? Like, can it be too early, or can it be too late, or what happened? Or maybe you can tell out of your experience, what was the moment when the people came to you? Maybe you've asked them, like, what were turning points or starting points for them to finally get going with their book?
Sometimes people come to me out of curiosity, and other times they come to me where they're at a point where it's exploding out of them. The story that they need to tell, the message that they want to share is exploding, and they need help with structuring it, putting it into chapters, actually just creating some structure and some organization out of all their chaotic thoughts and at all the different pages of writing that they might have done. So anytime is a good time. I also speak with a lot of authors who want to start writing and don't know where to start. They've actually got all of their pages kind of floating around in their mind and they don't know where to start. I work with those authors as well. So where I like to say to authors, wherever you are on your writing journey is the right place for you to be in this moment. And just start talking to someone, start talking to an editor or a book coach and just asking, okay, well, what's the process that you would take me through? And just allow them to guide you.
Wow, that's almost a great closing sentence. Wherever you are on your journey, it's the right place to start. And if you work with someone, ask them, where would they take you in the process? Thank you very, very much, Alex. Do you have any final word you want to say to our authors or to, in general, why it's worth telling your story to close the interview?
It's worth telling your story because there is someone who needs to hear it. And even if you haven't met them yet, or you may never meet them, without your story, you will never know the impact that you can have. Without putting your story out there, you'll never know. And how sad is that to leave with a story still inside you? So I encourage anyone who's ever thought about writing, sharing their story, getting it on a page and letting it spread to different places and different people. It will find the right hands. You just need to get it onto the page.
Wow, thank you so much, Alex. That was very inspiring.
My pleasure, Sylvia. Thank you so much for having me.